started making our Mother Goose topper, first thing we're going to do is make our book. I've got a mixture of modeling chocolate and fondant with a little bit of Tylose for my book base, but you could just use straight modeling chocolate if you wanted to, or you could use straight fondant, or you could use gum paste. So you've got a lot of options. This is going to go on top of a 6-inch cake, which is kind of the standard size for the top of a cake. And even if it was going on to an 8-inch, this would still be a pretty good sized topper. It's about 5 inches across. Just going to use my ruler and a straight edge here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then, let's see, 5 inches by, let's say about 3 1/4. One, two, three. One, two, and at the halfway mark, I'm just going to make myself a little mental note that that's the middle. Set that there, and then we're going to basically do the exact same thing, but with white. I'm just using a little quilting ruler here, and this just helps me keep things square. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's obviously not necessary. I want this to be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Find my center. And I want these pages to be, more like a book. Press down and kind of make this center part a little bit more curved. And that kind of stretched the length out a little bit. So I'm going to cut the ends off at sort of an angle to mimic the look of a book when it's open. The pages are not straight up and down, they're kind of at an angle. Looking very bookish already. I'm going to put a little bit of water. Gently place our book right there in the center. And it's a little bit long still. Just going to add in a few little lines to mimic the look of pages. I'm just placing this topper onto a piece of foam so it's a little bit easier to work. So as part of your tutorial, you should have received a few printables. You can choose which ones you want to use. I'm going to go with this one. Looks very Mother Goosey. Just make sure that's trimmed down to the size that you need it to be. This is just printed on wafer paper. Fold that in half. You could add more pages if you want to, if you wanted like more depth of paper, but I'm just going to put the one on. Just getting my fondant lightly wet. Just press that in there. So I'm using some anodized wire, and I've just placed our book on top of this foam block here, and that just is a nice surface for the wire to go into while we work on things. And I like to use the anodized wire because it's pre-coated, so it's really easy to use with something like this project. So this is where the legs are going to be. I'm just going to twist this up, and just going to make a nice little shape for where the Mother Goose head is going to be. Right like that. And then I want her wings to be out, so I'm going to create a couple little loops here to support the wings. Okay. I am using solid white modeling chocolate that I get from sweettastic.com for this project. Softening up a little piece. It's real firm when you first start, and then as you knead it, it gets a little softer. And I'm going to build up my body a little bit. Just going to take a piece of foil here. Just kind of make sure the legs are still visible. This just makes it so that we're not using so much modeling chocolate that it's weighing down our figure, right? And make sure our wings are the same size here. And I'm just going to use a little bit of masking tape. This just holds everything on tightly. And it also helps give the modeling chocolate something to grab onto. I'm just using a non-toxic Scotch masking tape, and I'm using Scotch masking because it's a little bit stickier than painter's tape, so it sticks to the wire real well, which is what we want. People ask me, you know, is this still edible even though it's got wire and aluminum foil on the inside? And I say absolutely. You know, you buy like lollipops and popsicles and all kinds of things that have support on the inside, like a kebab, you know, that has a wooden skewer on the inside. So as long as you're using non-toxic materials and you're letting your person, whoever is eating the topper, that there's an inedible material in the inside, then, you know, it's perfectly fine. But I mean, to be honest, not very many people actually eat these toppers. You know, they won't usually want to keep them. All right, so let's start fleshing out our goose. We have Mama Goose here. Great thing about modeling chocolate is, you know, you don't have to worry about seams because it just kind of all smooths together. So we're just going to start putting pieces on and creating our shape. Goose body is very, very fat around the bottom and long skinny neck. It's pretty simple. Basically, the goose body is like a big teardrop shape. And just try and ignore the wing area for now and just focus on making this fat sort of teardrop shape that goes from the body up into the head, right? And try not to worry about smoothing anything out really at this point because we're just building out our proportions, so you don't want to waste any time smoothing something that you're going to just end up putting more chocolate over. So at this point you're just kind of roughing out your shape, just kind of building everything up. And then we're going to start smoothing. A little pointy tail there. Okay. And then to smooth things out, you can put a little bit of water or vegetable shortening on your hands. You might want to use shortening if you're nervous about getting little splotches of water on your book down there. Just have a clean paper towel on hand to wipe your fingertips after they get too sticky. And the reason we want to do the body before we do the legs is because as you're working on everything, it tends, you know, this tends to move around a lot. So if we had already made the legs, then they get kind of messed up. So you want to leave the legs until we've got basically everything almost done. And then we'll put on the legs. Do a little round head, not too big. See the shape of the head here. It's about the same width of the neck. I'm going to take two little small balls, make ovals, and put those right on the sides here. And that is going to be like a cheek area. Make a small little indentation right where the eyes are going to be. And now we're going to put on the beak. Got a little bit of my orange Sweet-tastic modeling chocolate, but I want it to be a little bit more bright, so I'm adding a little bit of my egg yellow food coloring to bring out the richness of the orange. Let's add on a beak. Just going to basically take a nice sized ball, just put that right on the front. Make sure you make a little bump right here. It's very indicative to a goose. And we're going to just use our modeling tool to create a line and two little nostrils. All right, cute little goose, a little goosey goose. I'm gonna make this area where the eye is a little bit bigger. Just gonna put a little bit of water in there, not too much. Take a little piece of black, put that in there. Take a little piece of your white, roll it into a small ball, and press it flat, and use an X-Acto blade to cut in half. And we're going to put half on the top part of the eye and the other half on the bottom half. Just smooth out that little bump. Just put a couple little lines, widen that up, and then do the other side. Gonna make the wings. I'm just gonna start off by making a nice long flat piece. It's just gonna go on the bottom side. Roll into a teardrop, flatten it out. And it's kind of a good idea to make both of these at the same time so you can sort of guesstimate that they're the same size. Just bring it over the edge. Now we're going to make some feathers, just a few, by just taking a ball and rolling it and then squishing it. As you go down the wing, the feathers should get smaller and smaller. And just finish with another small piece right over the top and smooth out the edges. Don't worry about this rough line here. That adds to the look of the wing. Just kind of hollowing out the center a little bit. Don't uncover the structure. You should have something that's like this, where you can kind of see the bottom feathers. Got the most complicated part finished. Now I'm going to add on the feet. It's going to be just a round piece, our orange modeling chocolate, shape into sort of a triangle. I'm going to use a wide piping tip to cut off the two outside pieces. So we have a shape that resembles a foot. And then to get this on, I'm just going to cut a little slice in the back. Put that right. It's a little bit tricky, just enough so that it wraps around. This modeling chocolate gets very soft in your hands, so try not to handle it too much. You could also use fondant if you preferred to use that. I don't suggest gum paste. Use a little bit of water to smooth everything out. Just make sure your edge is nice and clean at the top. And do the other side. lovely goose a cape. For the cape, I would prefer to use fondant because I can roll it really thin and give it a more realistic draping effect. So I've got some orange fondant and some sky blue fondant. I just colored these with Americolor gels, just colored white, and I used my LMF fondant recipe. I'm just kneading it until it's nice and smooth. So I'm going to roll out a piece of our orange fondant, and I'm going to use a circle cutter. This one has scallops, but you don't have to use that. Roll it out a little bit bigger after it's cut out. Set that aside, and then do the same thing with the blue. Nice and thin on top of there, like that. I'm going to get a little slice here. Don't worry about the rough edge on the top. Just want to bring that around just so the tips touch there. Do a couple little lines like this that give the idea that it's fabric. And we're going to take our leftover orange. Got kind of like an oval shape here. And I'm just going to clean up the edge a little bit. Gather that. And just kind of wrap that around. And a couple little pieces to make it look like it's tied in the front. And one more little piece right on top. We got our little shawl. Very cute. Just got a little bit of my tear showing in the back. Pull this down just ever so slightly, just to make sure that's covered. Then our Mother Goose would not be a goose without her hat. And take a little piece of our modeling chocolate, flatten that out. Not thin, but not too thin. I'm going to get a circle that's an appropriate size for the head. Cut that out. And cut a slightly smaller hole and just kind of press that right on top and roll this into a cylindrical triangle, and I'm going to pop this into the freezer for 5 minutes. To make the glasses, we're going to use some wire shapers. I don't remember what these are called, but they're like a needle nose wire. That's what they are. And plier, and then a piece of threaded floral wire, and we're going to just create a nice little rounded shape like that. And we're going to use our fingers for another rounded shape. The rounder these shapes are, the better they will look. Just keep tweaking them. Make our 2 rounded shapes and cut off the excess. Take our finished glasses right over the beak, just like that. Make sure you warn, again, that there is inedible material on this topper. Don't want anybody eating that little piece of floral wire. And we're going to just add a couple little dots of white food coloring in the eyes. Just gives a little life. Just used a toothpick for that. Got our piece of modeling chocolate from the freezer. I'm just going to cut off the end, the straight edge, set it right on top. And there we have it, guys. The finished Mother Goose topper, all ready for the cake. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and you learned a lot about structures and making toppers. If you have any questions about this, again, you can just leave them in the comment section of the video. You can message me on Patreon if you are a Patreon. If you're not a Patreon, I definitely recommend you sign up for that. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching.